Good morning and howdy. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Paths to Publication. I'm Irene Kashev Gaius, and I lead marketing at the Education Leadership Research Center. I'm also a doctoral student at College of Education and Human Development at Texas A&M University. So let's just say our topic today, which is from quiet genius to known expert, brand building for scholars, it really hits very close to home. So, Paths to Publication, a quick review. It's basically a collaborative initiative by institutes of Texas A&M University, which are Center for Research and Development in Dual Language and Literacy Acquisition, Cordella, Education Leadership Research Center, Education Outreach, and Graduate Student Advisory Council. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is really our safe space to demystify really the whole process around publishing, especially for graduate students. Today we have with us, and I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Nguyen, who brings the entire scholarly journey, the depth, the real world impact to this conversation. He's an assistant professor in our counseling psychology doctoral program. He's a licensed psychologist, and he leads health empowerment and advocacy lab, where he focuses on the well-being of linguistic minority communities. He's also worn few other impressive hats, serving as entrepreneurial lead on an NSF core grant and later as COO of a startup, which is culturally informed pain diagnosis and relief. So the startup really develops solutions to help linguistic minorities advocate better pain treatment. So before joining Texas A&M, Dr. Wynn taught at Texas Tech and worked as a Teach Fellow and consultant. He's all about helping students become skilled researchers and bold, creative thinkers ready to take on complex challenges. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Nguyen, who will guide us on how to set ourselves up for success on our own paths to publication. Dr. Nguyen, a study recently published in Journal of Anxiety Disorders, it found that approximately 35% of graduate students experience anxiety related to academic writing and publishing. We would really like you to literally handhold and tell us more about your journey and how it all worked out for you. Floor's over to you, Dr. Nguyen.
All right, good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm very grateful for such a flattering introduction of me. I think you know more about me than sometimes I think of myself. So for that, I'm very, very grateful for having an opportunity to be here today. And I'm wondering, was that the question you asked me, or just for me to jumpstart my presentation?
Please jumpstart your presentation, and I'm sure that itself is going to answer so many questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So please give me one moment so I can share my screen. So I know that my the title for me, it sounds a little bit grandiose, like oh, from quiet genius to known expert, because I know that a lot of you or all of you in this room are a genius in your own right, and your work has a lot of impact and potential promise to change the field and to change the society. So today, I hope to tackle a little bit of different aspects of publication of scientific work, which is about brand building. So hopefully, what you would walk out of this 1 hour workshop today is number one, some form of like a foundational understanding of what branding means for scholar, because branding means very different for influencer, means very different for someone who develop an actual product, and also very different for us as scholar, as scientists, as researcher. So hopefully this gave you some ideas of what that may look like in your line of work. And the other part is understanding why your voice, your values, and also visibility matters so much. It's not just the work that we do, but the way that we go about it, the way that we bring ourselves in, the way that we make our work visible, also extremely important. And lastly, hopefully you can walk away with some very practical, low-lift steps to start cultivating your brand and jumpstart this process. All right. So as you heard about me, thank you again. Thank you for that introduction. I'm an assistant professor in the counseling psychology program, currently also a licensed psychologist. I serve as a COO for a startup tech company that is the part of an NSF I-Corps program. And it is in this program that I really understand, I truly explore a different facets of, of what it means to be a scholar and scientist. Because before I was just thinking, I'm being a researcher, I want to be a professor. All I'm doing is to publish papers, right? Published or vanished. But after being a COO, after literally engaging in the process of giving pitch talk, asking investor to put money in my company and my technology, those are, and really understand how I can the mission of my work is to translate the academic insights into a tangible solution to real world problem. That is when I see the potential impacts that our work can be. And that kind of informed the presentation today in terms of how we can build a brand, not just on the publications, but also the ultimate mission that we want to build for our work. And lastly, as you can see in the picture right here, I am a proud mentor of my research lab, 13 of them, and that is a part of my joy and my pride, but also my mission as the professor, which is to mentor my students. All right, so a little bit disclaimer. So here I approach branding as a scholar and as a psychologist, not as a marketing professional. And I am sure that many of you may have actually more knowledge in this topic than me. However, what I hope is that I can give you some different ways to look into branding, different ways to tackle this very ambiguous topic, which is branding, and hopefully can give you some new insight to explore and to play with. And one of the other things that I know that each of us, each of you have wisdom and insights to share. So at any point that you feel compelled to share or to add to the conversation, please do so. It's quite daunting for me to talk nonstop for 1 hour. So any contributions would be so much appreciated on my side. And lastly, the ideas of learning and growth as collective and continuous. I learned a lot of this in a community, and my learning process will continue after today's presentation. And what I hope is that I can also learn a lot from you as well. So again, please join in. Please stay uh, engage in this topic with me and allow me to learn from you as well and learn from one another. All right, so now let's do a little bit of the a low, low task activity, just a true or false. And I think you can type it in the chat box if you can. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this? Branding is just for business and influencers, not for scholars. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for responding, for indulging me. Um, the truth is that branding is not just about selling a product, right? Branding is about communicating your values, your identity. It's not just for commercial promotions. And absolutely, that is the job of our work as scholars. We always talk about our ideas. We always talk about the impact of our research, the impact of our work. And for that, either you want it or not, we always engage in branding in one way or the other. The other part, this is one of my favorite. Having a brand means you being vain or self-promotional. Um, Also false. um, Part of me want to say that it's okay to be true. It's okay to be a little bit vain. It's okay to be self-promotional. Because at the end of the day, you have to be the one to advocate for yourself and your career. And if you don't promote your work, the question is who will? So in a way, I want to take some stigma out of those words and really it's okay to like, I really appreciate that. It's okay to be promotional for a cause because many times we don't just stand for ourselves. Many times we actually stand for the mission, the impact behind our work. Your work should speak for itself. No need for a brand. Um, I think also for Um, so as you can see, the spiel of this one is, um, uh, I think this is one of the, one can argue the yes and. Of course, your work should speak for itself. Of course, what we care so much about is the quality of our of our work, the quality of our research, the quality of our writing. But at the same time, um, what about branding is we also make that quality of the quality work visible to other people because our work doesn't serve much if it's not visible to others. And in this time and age, that even more critical and crucial. If people don't know your work, there will be no collaboration. There will be no intervention. There will be no impact in the larger scale. So this is the part that there's the importance of branding in that sense. And then the other question is, I don't have time to think about branding. I'm too busy doing real work. So obviously you can know that this may be also a false statement because what we are doing is branding when you choose to do a collaboration in a project, in a way that is still branding. When we engage in a presentation like this, that is a part of you branding yourself. When you put together a CV, you write together a personal statement or a job application, those real work is also the part of branding. Communicating to others what is your values, communicating to others what do your work stand for. So branding is a part of being real work. And lastly, branding is about creating a professional website or logos. This is something that I was thinking, this is my misconception for the longest time. But one thing that I'm realized, especially in my years and learning from different mentors, is that actually 70% of branding is about learning about yourself. So throughout the presentation today, you would see the ideas of self-reflection is so critical and important in branding. And this is not just for us as scholars, but when I actually do a little bit of research in actually branding in marketing studies, they also say that a lot of branding is about create that sense of identity, create that sense of cohesive stories about you, about the product, about a company, and a lot of that work requires you to know who you are, what do your work stand for. So yes, so brand, yeah, creating a website or logo, it's just a small part of it. I appreciate you brought that up. And the big chunk of it is about learning who you are, what you stand for. All right. So why branding matters? So here it is the part that we just sum it up what some of the points that we have talked about. Because branding is very important to establish your career visibility and competitiveness. Um, I can only speak for myself in these. Yes, I want to do important research. Yes, I want to serve community, but it's also yes, I want to have a good job. So, and this is a part that branding can help you to increase your competitiveness in the job market. So that again, so that allows you to do the important work. And the other part of a branding, and actually when you engage in a branding process, it also helps you to define your intellectual niche. What's specific in the field that you stand? And what is the specific contribution impact you can offer to the field? This is a very big field, and I assume that many of us are from the field of psychology, perhaps. So this is a part that may be to identify your niche and really see where your impact stands. The other one is, of course, increased discoverability and collaboration. If people don't know your work, how to find it, who do you stand for, there will be no collaboration, and that decrease the impact that you want to establish from your work. And the other part is build bridges between research, practice, and policy, because as all of us know, that it takes a village to develop products that really solve the real world problems. And that takes more than just a scholar, that takes more than just a researcher to do so. So in order to have that team, in order to have that group of people, or even just to write a grant, you need collaborators, right? You need visibility so that people can find you, so that you have a way to talk about your work in a compelling way to establish that partnership. And ultimately, branding is also to maximize the impact of your work. All right. So I'm wondering, so what is a brand then? I'm curious what comes to your mind when you just hear the term brand or branding. In psychoanalysis, this is kind of like a free association activity. Just whatever comes to your mind when you hear the word brand, either the words or the image. Think of promotion. Absolutely. Right? Thank you. A logo. Absolutely. Representation, labeling, impact, make something official. I really love that idea. It's the scholar personify. Oh gosh, I love it. Images and writing, getting your work out there, the impact, showing it out there. So there's a lot about engagement, presentation, some form of manifestation that represent your work and what you stand for, right? So I think those are um, absolutely. Thank you so much. Um, so I'm now just play a little bit of these. I'm wondering what comes to your mind when you see this picture or seeing this name, Abraham Maslow, the hierarchy, right? Yes. Um, hierarchy of needs, absolutely. So just see the name and see the image, you really see his work. You may not know all of his work, but you may know that very specific contribution of his work. How about this person? Freud, Sigmund Freud. Yes, there's a lot of sexual psychology. There's a lot of mothers and dad, mommy and daddy's issues. Um, yes, there's a lot of psychology, psychoanalysts, um, unconscious mind, right? How about Albert Bandura, for those of you who know? So I think this can go to constructivism, Maslow and pyramid, Bobo, teaching and learning theories, right? About teaching, about self-efficacy, about social learning. Um, the last picture, Anna Freud. So the ideas, Anna Freud, again, she is a daughter of Sigmund Freud, and her work a lot has to do with child psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. So as you can see, each of these psychologists is this figure, their names and their image attached to their work. So just see the name, you see their work as well. So I think that's one of the things that I have observed over the years that almost all the very impactful researchers and scholars, in one way or the other, either they are intentional or not, they have successfully cultivated a brand for themselves. So that when people mention their name in the field, when people think about their work, they know the specific niche of the contribution. So in terms of the definitions, and I just say if I do some Google Scholar or even just Google search, I find at least 100 definitions of branding, right? Some example I would pick is a distinctive features, a name, a term, a design, a presence, symbol, a lot of the things that you have mentioned that identifies goods or services. So that is one of the official definition of the American Marketing Association. The other things that a brand is a name, term, design, symbol, any other feature that distinguishes one seller's good or services from those of other sellers. So here we're talking about the elements of uniqueness. What does about this product that defines you, that kind of makes you stand out from the field, from the market, that there are many other that also potentially sell and offer the same products. What makes you stand out? And the other definition that I see is that brand is the sum of all expressions by which an entity intends to be recognized. So this is move away from what you want to portray, but also how do you want to be portrayed? How do you want to be recognized and perceived by others? So among all of these definitions, 100 of them, um, can I offer my definition for a brand? And may not be the most scientifically sound at all, but at least this is how I want to define a brand, especially in a scholarly word. I think a brand is what people remember and say about you and your work when you're not in a room. So, and here, as you can, and that is how I define it. There's an element that people have to remember about you, but not just about your work, not just about your research, but about you as a person as well. So the reason that I separate these, you and your work, because um, because I don't think we can truly separate ourselves from our work. And so I'm wondering, um, I'm curious, just using a few key terms or short phrases, I'm wondering, how do you want people to describe your work? And how do you want people to describe you when you're not in the room? Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robert, if I say your name correctly. Yes. Um, that is the point of a lot of this question. It's not just about the content, it's about the emotional process. And a lot of that emotional response really comes from understand how people describe you. So yeah, there's some key word. Thank you so much, Kyoshana. Advocate, justice oriented, intersectional, brave, accessible, approachable, rooted in community. Wonderful. Social justice advocate for educator well-being. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Monique. I think a lot of us can be friends. That's literally how I would describe my work and myself too. Trust, approachable, integrity, thorough, caring, mentor. Absolutely. Yes. So thank you so much. Yes. And please just keep putting those in. I really appreciate your engagement. It helps so much. The reason I'm asking this too, at least in my process, because the first question, how do you want people to describe your work, right? Potentially, what is your research agenda? Get to the content of what. What do you have to offer? What are your products as a scholar, right? And this is when you can shape your CV around. This is when you can shape your job talk around. This you can shape your personal research statement around. What do you have to offer? What is your niche in research? What is your niche and specialty as a scholar? But also, how do you want people to describe you really gets to the part that earlier one of our members really shared. It's about the emotions. It's about the how. Yeah, so we get the what. This is my research, right? This is my papers, all that I have published. But oh, how do you want to go about it? Because in the process of how do you want to portray the product and give the product, you communicate to people a lot about yourself, who you are, your values, what do you stand for? How do you want people to engage with your brand, your work emotionally, not just intellectually? So yeah, so I think like Christine shares that brands involve storytelling, personal connection, and emotional impact. So here it's not just about, hey, I'm a very good researcher. I have 10 papers, all of the journals, impact factors of like 3.5, 5.0, but it's about how you deliver it, how you carry yourself, how you communicate your messages. What does your brand evoke certain emotions on others? And how do people remember you emotionally? So those are the two angles that we would tackle. And it seems like a lot of people in our audiences are also such an expert in this because you already mentioned a lot of the key ideas of of what we would talk about. So I steal this quote from Dr. Aker, who is considered to be a father of modern branding. He shared that the brand vision should attempt to go beyond functional benefits. Functional benefits meaning they're telling people what you're selling, right? But to consider the values, higher purposes, brand personality, and the emotional, social, and self-expressive benefits. So what he shared is move beyond just knowing the what do you sell, right? But also the way that you portray that, the way that your brand and your product elicits some emotional response in the audience, right? So here, the other way to say that, yes, you have your product, you have your CV, you potentially have your website, but also the process beneath all of that is about the emotions, the missions, your visions of your work, your value as a person and as a professional, your personality, right? Because someone may want to come across very warm, someone wants to come across very funny, someone wants to come across very collaborative, whereas someone wants to come across very authoritative, right? So that personality shapes the stories and the narrative that you tell about yourself and your product. And that potentially shape how you want to structure your CV, your website, your essays, your job talks. So when you think about brand, think about both of the content and also the process, the emotions behind it. Okay, so now let's talk about the number one, which is the what, the product and the content. And this is not the broken record, right? This is something that I know all of you in one way or the other have known about. It's when we talk about the what are your products? Um, we have to talk about make sure that our work is thematic and programmatic. Because the last thing we want to do is what we want to sell 10 products at the same time, right? That not related whatsoever. Because without the cohesive narrative, thematic, problematic work and products, people will not remember you. So, but I want to also mention the ideas of grounded your work in the larger, the mission. What is the ultimate mission of your work? So, for example, for me, the themes of my research work has a lot to do with health psychology and multicultural psychology. But the central mission that even guide that themes are to address health disparities and improve chronic pain care for people from minoritized communities, right? So don't just stop at the themes, but also think about what is the central mission of your work. And then the other part go back here because your scholarly product should be cohesive and coherent, because that is one of the central elements of how to make your product, how to make yourself memorable. Because people don't remember details, but what they will remember is themes. What they will remember is a very cohesive narrative. And then lastly, each of the project, and this is more, I remember when I was a student, I was invited by my mentors to participate in like 20 different papers at the same time, right? So those are the time I really have to ask myself, each of this project does not have to be 100% aligned with either my mission or thematic, but it should clearly connect. It should one way or the other connect back to my larger scholarly vision and mission. It cannot be totally unrelated. So this is what we don't want. You have 5 citations, 10 citations, but there's no central missions that orient and organize all of that. And from a marketing standpoint, that is not the smart way to go about branding. But also, if you think about from a scientific standpoint, this is not what strong research and scholarly work look like, right? Because if you do 10 unrelated things, you're an expert in nothing. So what we want to do is potentially there's essential missions, there is essential themes that helps to guide all of your different projects that may not totally related, but at least there's some central mission that really guides and orients all of your projects, all of your paper, and all of your work. So as I mentioned, right, so I have all of this citation, but all of that can connect back to my 2 central missions, which is decreasing healthcare disparities and also promoting chronic pain care for minoritized communities. Those are the 2 themes and those are the 2 central missions I want people to remember after my job talk. After they read my research statements, those are the 2 things I really hope. If they don't remember any of my accomplishment, I want them to take away with the 2 themes because those are the things, those are your products, and those is how your brand orients around. All right. So again, this is part of a lifelong work, but really a reflect on solidify the central mission and themes of your work. And then for especially for a lot of y'all, perhaps are still graduate students, so there's the balance between exploration, right? Really learn and explore what's out there in the field, but also think strategically about with all of these projects, can one way or the other connect back to the central narrative, the central mission of your work. And again, this established credibility, visibility, reputation, and of course, scientific impacts. Mhm. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to the part two of branding, which is how do you want people to describe you, right? So here we're talking about the process, the how, the emotional components of branding. Yes, this is the central mission of my work. This is the product I want to sell. Yes, I have 10 citations. I have 10 book chapters that back me up, right? That I'm an expert. Now it's about how do you want to portray that, right? What packages you want to hand to your audience? How do you want people to engage with your brand, your work? So here we're talking about emotions. So this is one of my favorite quote of all time from Dr. Chill Taylor. Although many of us may think of ourselves as thinking creatures that feel, biologically, we are feeling creatures that think. Essentially, what it really share about is we are, at the end of the day, a feeling creatures. A lot of the decisions that we make are based on a lot on emotions more than intellectuals. So I was talking to one of my students in my lab, and she was used to be a salesperson for a car dealership. And she shared with me that people buy, you know that people buy your car just because they like the seller. And for the first part, I'm just like, I don't understand that, right? Because when you go buy a car, you need to research the features of a car, the price, and all of that. But she shared one of a very important component is that if they don't like the seller, then you can have the best car with the best price, they will not buy your products. So here they talk about the importance of what kind of emotions you want to elicit on people that engage with your brand, that engage, that read your research statement, that sit in your job talk, what emotions that you want to elicit in them. When I was a COO for that company, one of the biggest mistake I make, especially when giving a lot of like business pitch talk to ask people to give me the money, is to talk about how amazing my product is. Like, hey, this is a product that will change the world. This is so amazing. This has ABC features. And and a lot of the mentors told me at that time that people don't care how amazing your work is, your product is. What they care is two things, right? What kind of pain that you solve in their life and what kind of rewards you bring to their life. And the pain and the rewards all has to do with emotions. All right. So again, the idea is that people do not connect with the products. They don't care if you have 20 citations. They really don't, at the end of the day, right? Not to say that they don't matter, but at the end of the day, they care. They also care a lot how they connect with you as a person. And again, branding isn't just about shaping how others see your work, but it's evoking connection, trust, or some form of positive emotions. And that's why you're not just selling your CV. What you're also selling here is your voice, your values, your presence as a person. And then here's the part that it's a branding is not just about being fake, right? It's not just about creating a persona, but it's actually branding is about knowing who you are so you can portray them authentically. Because I think, especially from my experience working as a therapist and psychologist, people kind of like apologies on my curse word, bullshit radar is very good. So they can really detect when someone is not real, when someone is being fake. So part of this is really being authentic and present yourself in the real way. Okay, so I have kind of like these three steps, and hopefully you can kind of like work with me, kind of like reflecting back. What values do I consistently want to bring to my research, to my teaching, to my leadership? And again, feel free to type in if you want to. What am I not willing to compromise on, even if it's cost me visibility? Right? What is the ground you stand on? Or what are the three emotions do I want to evoke when someone interacts with my work? Well, for me, I want them to feel grounded, for them to feel trusted, and for them to feel that I'm their collaborator. So for that is the three emotions, a three emotional response I want people to have. And what are the three words do I hope people use to describe me? Again, so those are the things that can help you to to reflect and really to know yourself better. What is your values? What is your missions? And also, what is your interpersonal style? And the second part is clarifying your audience and impact. Because what are the core audience that you want to reach? And this is something that I'm sure that all of you kind of like be a common sense of a topic, because each of the audience kind of like requires different facets from you, right? My students want certain parts of me more than my collaborators. Or the leadership want to see some side of me more than my students or my research assistant. So part of our branding is that we have to know what the core audience is that you want to reach. My job application materials, the branding for that has to be a little bit different than my personal website. It has to be a little bit different than my lab website, that a lot of students use that to know who I am as a mentor. Um, Again, what do they need from me? Not just intellectually, but emotionally and psychologically. And here it's not about, you just being fake or you just create a persona that you think people want to see, but think about what parts of myself that I can highlight and lean into to better meet those needs. So there's an element of branding, there's an element of flexibility in how you present yourself and your materials based on the audience you want to reach. And what emotional experience do I want them to have through my presence in my work? Again, how do you want specific audience to feel when they engage with you in your work? And lastly, designing your emotional through line. So what it looked like to make your emotion through line visible and consistent, right? So for example, if you want one of your tone to be grounded on the voice of, for example, social justice oriented, then make sure that spirits, regardless of the audience, that spirits consistently come through in one way or the other, right? Because we know that people need to hear one thing at least 3 times for them to remember. So please don't be afraid to in a way repeat yourself and repeat your values and replicate your tones in different ways throughout your branding materials. And the other part is that everything is your brand, right? Yes, the CV, the bios, the website, the job talks, the presentation. But I would want to say even your email is a part of your brand. Even your headshot is a part of your brand. Your personal statement, your everyday interaction, all of that is the way for you to cultivate that brand so that when people think of you, they have the immediate emotional response towards how you bring yourself and how your work present in the world. And then the question sometimes I'm asking myself is, does your brand materials reflect my values, emotional tone, visually and verbally? Again, think about all aspects of your work and your and and how you bring yourself to the work. Everything is a part of your brand. And lastly, consistency, cohesion, and intentionality. All of us in one way or the other are developing our brand right now and continuously to do it. A lot of this has to do with intentionality. What is the intentionality? What is the purposes you bring in certain ways to present your materials? All right. So those are the three steps in here. So we need to move towards Q&A. Absolutely. So I would do the last slides and then I would move right to the Q&A. So so the first thing is please start now. Your brand already exists. It's time to shape it with intention. And then the other thing is that be strategic. Find your core missions and let it guide your work. And one thing is very important in branding is reflect very often. Strong brands come from very deep self-awareness, not just polishing the surface. Think of long term. Branding is not a one-time task. It's really evolving practice. And lastly, get your hands dirty. Don't just plan and reflect and think, but test, play, explore, create your personal website on Google Sites and really test it out and see how do you want your brand to look like, and continue to engage in this self-reflection. All right. Thank you so much. And I know that we're at the time for Q&A, but I'm very grateful for your engagement. And and for being here today. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wen. Seriously, this was such a learning talk and something that scholars, graduate students, and several others, these are the questions and areas that we're not really focused towards. I really liked one of the comments that said branding is a part of real work. We generally don't consider it as a part of real work. We consider it as something extra. So yes, while we create our story, through your talk. If any of the participants, if they have any questions, we're welcome to take those questions. I'm glad to welcome Dr. Beverly Irby. She's joined here with us. She too is a very strong brand in herself and someone we've learned so much from. Dr. Irby, it would be great to hear from you too.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to say that uh, I always talk to Dr. Nguyen. I say, "Oh, you're a real winner, Dr. Win-Win." And so you're a double winner. So I always think about that when I think about him, and that's sort of a brand that I think of him. He's very positive, and he's a great winner in terms of his research. And you saw his research team. It's a great team that he has. And thank you for mentoring and leading that team as well, Dr. Wynn. We appreciate that, and we so appreciate your being here today. This was excellent information and sharing with us and reminders. If you're already doing that, just some reminders or affirmations that you're doing that. And thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today.
Of course. I have one question, and of course, Dr. Wen or Dr. Irby, and any of you both could answer. Is there a major don't that we shouldn't, something that we should keep our eyes on, something we should keep in our radar when we're trying to brand our work? What is a major don't, like a no-go area?
And this is where I want to invite all of you to come and join in and offer your wisdom. But I think for me, the big no for me is when I don't being authentic is the big no for me. Because again, sometimes people think that, oh, there's this very polished facade. But really, the more real you are, the more people can see the real voice in you, the real vision in you. This is when you make the greatest impact. And this is when you can elicit the strongest emotion, the positive emotions in people. So I would say, if I understand your question correctly, is one of a big no for me personally, is when I compromise my authenticity. Yeah, even for the sake of visibility.
Absolutely. Dr. Irby, for you?
I couldn't get my thing to work. A don't, you're talking about a don't. Well, you just have to be, I think you have to be careful. We can't, I mean, we need to have some conversations as well when we're going out sort of on our own doing this. And because every one of us in here almost, maybe there are some other guests as well from other locations, but the people who are here from Texas A&M or from your own location, we are representing Texas A&M University. And to be honest, in many of the things that we've done, and when we commercialized our Stella curriculum and all of that, we have found out that, of course, that we own nothing. Basically, our intellectual property of what some of the things Dr. Wynn was talking about, like the brand of Freud or the brand of Maslow and things of that nature that we think of. We think of them, yes, but but the things that we produce are uh, Texas A&M's at this time when we are here and with the state of Texas. And so we have to be very careful about that. That's one thing we just can't go off and do something, like I might do something crazy. We have to just be really careful about that and be mindful that we are representing Texas A&M University in the
Policy
state of
alignment.
Yes.
Absolutely. We hear you.
Yes, so that would be the only caution that I think of right now.
Hmm.
And I do want to thank you, Maureen, for being here and hosting today.
Of
And
course.
I'm going to need to hop off, but thank you so much. And thank you again, Dr. Nguyen and everyone for
A-
being here. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us, Dr.
Thank
Irby.
you. Okay. Thank you.
Just one more question. So, Dr. When we have do you recommend keeping your focus under two, or is there another limit you recommend? Also, could that limit be continuously evolving as well? Because
Um,
that's
oh,
Marina's question. Marina, you want to voice that question?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Hello, Dr. Nguyen, how are you?
good. I'm good.
So
Thank
you mentioned earlier that it's important to stay grounded and to be focused on one mission. But in that, you also mentioned that with the story you mentioned you focused on two things.
you. Yeah.
So I wondered if I know that I listen to other people who also brand, and I heard a mention that this idea of branding is now extending out to, or there's an encouragement to extend to different types of things, even though the focus is one. So I wondered if what is the limit first? And then, is that something that will be evolving, do you think?
Yeah, thank you so much for these great questions. I know at least for me, I think that that's also, I'm for sure that is evolving. So I think this is a part that we really learn about ourselves and our work and how that evolved with time. So it doesn't mean that we're not fixated on one mission, but doesn't mean, and why simultaneously, when we evolve, doesn't mean we betray the old mission. Perhaps the expanding is, we find a better way for the mission that better capture all aspects of our work. And I do hear, even though I use two, but I can see that there are people that have more than just two. But I think as long as people can identify, I think that's the goal I want to say. Because if you have 10 missions, it's hard for people to identify where do your work stand. So as long as people can identify your work and the central missions, so I think that can be helpful. And for sure, my mission have evolved with time. How I enter my grad school and how the work I am now is very different and a lot of evolving. Never stops, I feel like.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know there's another, oh, Maureen, I don't think we can hear you, but do we have time for other questions or we are out of time?
Actually, we can take one more question. So it says, this is from Robert saying, I have marketing background in private sector for 15 years. I'm fairly new, 2 years in research space. So starting now, so what would be your top 3 tasks to start? And second question, what tools do you use? Is it social media or, what any other tools you would recommend?
So I can only speak for myself. If you have marketing background, you probably have more wisdom and knowledge than me. So if anything, I should learn from you. But I can speak for my process. I learned so much about branding actually when I start to create my website. And that is just like I use Google Sites, so it's free. But really the process of that really pushed me to be so intentional of what my values are and the way I want to communicate that values to the world. So I think, and I know that there are other professors, other mentors that I know of, but one of the activity is to have their grad students create their own website. Because again, I think that's really push you to be very reflective, very intentional, and kind of give you a very good practice of what do you want your brand to look like? What are the colors of your website? How do you want people to feel when they see your website? So I think, at least to me, creating a website gives you that kind of like a playground for you to play and explore your style, explore what your brand can look like. So if there's one that I like for my students in my lab, I do recommend that they create their websites too. And the purpose of it is for them to play and explore and freely cultivate their brand in a safe way, right? Because your website, if you don't publish it, no one would see. But I think that's a good way for them to really critically, creatively engage with this process. But obviously, social media tools too, like LinkedIn, and even Facebook and Twitter, yeah, I think all of that can be used. But I think with the website, I think you have a larger playground for you to play and explore and experiment. So that is my personal process, but I know there are more than just one way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Wen. This is amazing. You've given all of us some homework to do, and we're going to really start very consciously, metacognitively, or thoughtfully look at our own work, evaluate it, and see what sort of messages we're sending out there. So I really appreciate it. For everyone who's joined today, thank you so much for your time. Feel free to email us, email Jordan Janoop. She would be responding to your queries, if any. And yes, our sessions will be available. We again thank Dr. Wynn so much. And I bet several people will be replaying this session that we've recorded this time. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Dr. Wynn.
Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, Dr. Linda Rodriguez, for joining. Thanks, everyone, for asking very well-informed and useful questions. Bye-bye. Have a good day.